Hey guys, welcome back to the Goodfellow Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Barone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about the five families, a little bit where they're from, more or less what their forte is about, what they more or less specialize in. Just so you know ahead of time, that's what I'm going to do. But in the meantime, tune in, like and subscribe us so I can bring some more stories to you as well. Don't forget about the Patreon channel, which I got a lot of different content, a lot of legal work, a lot of paperwork. Maybe a lot of people want to read it, plus some real fun times in there too. And don't forget about our shop. We got some shirts, hats, coffee mugs, backpacks. I mean, we got it all. So tune into that. Anyway, let's get started about the families. Just so you know, before I even start naming them one at a time, because a lot of people don't really realize how many there are, what their real, who was the bosses, who was this, what did they do. Every family, in the most important thing is they want to make money. Sometimes people can work together, the families. They can get permission to go into certain territories which they're more prominent in. And you'll see by the way I break it down. But it's all really about money. And they will work together more or less. And I'll explain that as I go. So, with that, I'll start with the Gambino family. Of course, everybody knows the Gambino crime family because of John Gotti and stuff like that. Of course, that was started, I believe, way back in the 1900s somewhere, and then by Carlo Gambino, who was, I guess, the one. That's why the family was named after him. So he was a real slick guy too back in his days. Quiet. I mean, he's old school. And let's face it, a lot of people today they want to have all new things. And don't get me wrong, technology is good, but you need to keep a lot of the old ways. It's good to do other things with computers, and of course you got to adapt. But listen, a lot of the old ways are not bad. Okay, they're there for a reason. But mainly they were from like Brooklyn, Staten Island, more or less. I mean, they did have their tentacles all around, Bronx and all kinds of little places. But their really stomping grounds was in that area too. They were mostly involved in like construction. You got the garment district, gambling, of course, and whatever else may come. Which actually, believe it or not, John's brother Gene he had a big drug pinch because listen, they tell you they not to do anything with drugs, but whatever's going to bring in the money, they're going to do. They just keep it like on the DL, on the down low, because you're not supposed to really be doing it because it brings a lot more heat and stuff like that. You deal with a lot of unsavory people nowadays with the drugs. It's not like it was back when Lucky Luciano, who was actually the big founder of like the mafia too, but he was you try to keep it quiet. I mean, we used to say in the life, you're as good as the last envelope you got, and so a lot of people pretend like they don't know what you're doing when you're doing that, but it exists. But you don't want to get caught because you could get whacked for that too, doing the wrong thing and not letting certain people know you can get killed for it.
What was the garment district for those who don't know?
So the garment district is where all the clothes get made, get brought in from all around the world. It's one of the biggest, most lucrative money, illegal money too. It's legal. It's not illegal. But they got their hands in it. You know what I mean?
And when you say they had their hands in it, were they extorting like the clothing manufacturers, or were they actually was it legit business?
Believe it or not, it's legitimate business. I mean, of course, you got power when you have these when you're backed up like Tommy Gambino and all of that. Like they got the power because of who they are. But it's all legitimate business. You can show money. You could pay taxes on it. It's actually really exciting when you go to these places because you get to see everything is fast paced, and that's one thing about New York. It's nothing ever. They say it's the city that never sleeps, so there's a reason for that. But it's a legitimate business, and of course there's other things that can go on there too. That's illegitimate with clothing, and certain people get cuts. Of course, there's some clothes that go missing. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing, but. Uh, it is a lucrative and it is a legitimate business. We had Louis Cassman on. He said that Tommy died. He had $500 million when he died, and that's what they know of. So who knows exactly what he really had?
Right.
Probably almost as much as that in cash somewhere, hidden. So listen. The bottom line is it is a business, and it's a serious business. So there's no fooling around. There's no playing games. There's no, this is serious because you never, ever want to cut off a wise guy or a family's business from making money. That starts a war right there.
And who were some of the major players in the Gambino family?
You basically you had of course, like I say, there was the Gambino crime family, and I think even the Lucchese guys were involved in there too, if I'm not mistaken. But I wasn't involved in it, so I don't really know as much about that. But listen, everybody eats, and that's the most important thing in a wise guy business. There are a lot of cutthroats as far as wise guys go, from families to families. Maybe somebody don't like this guy in another family, just like there's real killers in other families, real guys who take care of business, real scary guys. Believe me, there's very scary guys. So everybody has a role to play. And so, but you conduct business. Look, these guys go to the garment district dressed in suits, sharp businessmen. You don't think they can make a phone call and have you disappear in a heartbeat. So this is serious business, and as you can tell by the money I just said that the other guys were making, a lot of money gets passed around, and that's how these people survive. That's how these people thrive. So. But like I say, you had Paul Castellano. They said he was greedy, all this kind of stuff like that. He probably was. Of course, he got taken out, as everybody knows, Spark Steakhouse, all that stuff like that. John Gotti supposedly got him waxed for, he was no good, I guess, than what they said within their family. And, he was greedy. And of course, I'm surprised they didn't like, of course, the fact that Gene was dealing drugs. I guess somebody gets wind of it. It's kind of hard to keep a secret in that kind of life. And so this is what happened to Gambino family, but they're pretty powerful still to this day. And what makes you powerful is the money you can generate, and as many soldiers and associates and captains you got and stuff like that too. Because I think somebody had asked me once, who's the most powerful crime family? I'm like, it's kind of hard to really know. I think the one that's going to be the most powerful is still the Genevese, but we'll get into that too. As a matter of fact, I'll go to the Genevese crime family now, because that's a family that I was supposed to be with. My father actually was with them.
He was a made guy with them, correct?
He was a made man.
A soldier?
Yep, he was a soldier. He got made late in life. Barney actually is the one who proposed him.
Barney Belemo?
Yep. And Barney's pretty high up there in the Genovese crime family, very well respected. He proposed my father and got him straightened out. So that was actually supposed to be my family. But they do a lot of white-collar crimes, a lot of loan sharking, gambling. But they were mostly from the Manhattan and the Bronx. But they're all over, too. I mean, like I said, you got the tentacles all around. But they also, like I said, if you want to do something in certain areas and certain places in the Bronx, you gotta go. You talk to the right people. You don't walk into somebody's house and and then you just walk and open a refrigerator door. You ask permission first, and that's the way you do it. That's a sign of respect, a show of that you know who's who there, and you go through the proper channels. Okay, and believe me, a lot. Look, they might say, "Okay, yeah, why don't you want to open up a place here? You got something going on?" Okay, they talk about how much money the projection of what maybe they can generate there. Everybody's got their hands in it, and they'll say, "Let's try it for 6 months, a year, and see how it goes." And that's how things get done. But that's the way you're supposed to do it. Instead of just thinking you're going to come over there and take over a crew. That's the reason why a lot of these guys don't do the drug game anymore, because you get all these cartels and stuff, and they just want to sell drugs. They don't care who's there. And then, of course, what happens is shootout, somebody gets killed. You don't, in this life, you want to keep off the radar of law enforcement. That's the most important thing. Stay low key if you can. And that's how you survive. That's how you want longevity. You know what I mean? But the Genovese family, Vito Genovese, of course, that's back in the day, how that all started. There was a lot of good guys in that kind of family, a lot of tough guys too, but they were very lucrative, very smart. Probably one of the smartest families around as far as staying low. I think there's like less rats in the Genovese family than there is in any crime family.
When you say white-collar crimes, what do you mean by that?
Like white-collar crimes, like they get into legitimate businesses, what it is that's like white collar crime. So in other words, they're not going around doing stick ups really or anything or shaking people down.
More like money laundering
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
exactly. Because they can funnel the money through certain places, certain businesses, and they listen. A lot of these families are going to try to be into legitimate businesses because you can hide a lot of money. You can report a lot of money and stuff like that. Like if you got a lot of cash and you don't have a job and you're living in $1 million home, you really got to explain where the money come from. I was able to do a lot of explaining because I had a lot of people left me money who, was recorded. So that that helped me hide a lot of my money and hide a lot of my assets and why I could drive around and have all the jewelry. You got to keep receipts for. I mean, you can't believe the stuff you got to do to evade the law enforcement, and that's the most important thing.
And who were some of the other major players in the Genevese family?
Well, you got Big Ernie Mascarelli. He's a big major player too. Really, really good guy, tough guy. I mean, he's the type of guy you could talk to. He, like Barney, you could talk to. And there, of course, there was Vincent the Chin. He was the big shot who was walking around. If everybody knows, he was always walking around like he was crazy.
What was his last name? Gigante, right?
Gigante, yeah, the Chin, yeah. But there's some other people there too. A lot of people in that family, and that's another reason why I kind of went with the Bonanno family later on. I didn't really like a lot of people. Of course, I didn't care for Sally Locker and Hippie and all those guys. They were just jerk offs. And they got straightened out. All right, they did a few things, but I didn't like the crew. There was there was some good guys there. Patty Boy Falsetti, he was good. My father. If my father was alive, I probably would have maybe went with that crew. But everybody understands if they've been watching the show, they understand about what happened to my father, so I didn't go there.
So who actually proposed your father?
It was Barney.
Barney Bellomo.
Yeah. My father, don't forget, he got pinched for a drug pinch in the 70s. And then my father went with Barney. Matter of fact, about 2:30 in the morning, they drove to the BQE and they pulled over on the side of the road. And they went for the talk right there because you could see law enforcement, how you could see if anybody's going to pull behind you. Why is this car pulling behind us? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the FBI following you. But he was like that to avoid law enforcement. He was pretty cool like that. And, he understood what to do. So that's what he said. Look, I'll tell you exactly what he said to my father. He said, look, I know what you did in the past. He said, but that's behind you now. He says, we don't do that here and we don't do that here. And the bottom line is you're with us now. And that's how it went. And that's how they proposed my father. Even though I think Sal Larka got pinched for like a truckload of not heroin, I'm sorry, weed, marijuana, pot, whatever you want to call it. So, whatever. I don't know how that whole story went down, but
do as I say and not as I do.
Yeah, listen, everybody goes, "Oh, he was doing that." I don't know. You know what I mean? They always pretend like it's that kind of thing.
Right.
But for the most part, I think that I think the Genevese and the Gambino family, those will be the most successful families. And the Lucchese family, which I'll go to next. They're mainly based in the Bronx, and so, but they in Queens and Manhattan too. But they're from more or less they kind of in the Bronx. I actually knew Stevie Crea, who was actually was running things for a while too. There was Tony Ducks who ran things. Then of course there was the Gas Pipe and.
What was his real name? I always hear him referred to as Gas Pipe. Yeah, but what was his
name? I forget what's his first name was. Oh my God, I can't think of it right now. But everybody knows, So
he was a crazy guy, right?
He was like a serial killer. The guy, he was crazy.
Wow.
He tortured the guy that tried to kill him. Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's why you're gonna kill somebody. Make sure they're dead because, the retribution. You know what I mean? Is, they poked his eyes out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they tortured him. They shot him, stabbed. I mean, forget about it. Yeah, it was pretty bad. So, he tried to make a deal with the government too, and they caught him in so many lies. It wasn't funny. Yeah, and then his partner there too was another guy. He was crazy. He was the guy that actually gave me the good advice before I went to go see the FBI. Vic Arena. and so he was good guy too, and but those guys, there was some pretty tough guys in the Lucchese crime family. My cousin actually was with them. My uncle, my cousin George Patty, so he was with the Lucchese guys. He was with another guy they used to call him Joe Bacala. I don't even know his real name. So look, half the times I didn't even know their real names. I knew Frankie the Wig. I knew another guy Inches. There were so many guys. I never knew their real names. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't care because it didn't really matter their real name to me anyways, whatever it was. But those guys, they were a pretty tough crew, a lot of them. So, but anyways, I'll go to the next family.
What were
which
they
is,
before you move on? What were they?
sure.
What type of rackets was the Lucchese's involved in primarily?
They would do like the airport stuff, like that kind of thing. They were in the garment district, like I said earlier, with the Gambino guys. And believe it or not, they did drugs. They had a lot of drug games out there too.
What do you mean by airport stuff?
They would go to the airport, rob and stuff like that.
Steal luggage?
Well, I think the Lucchese. I don't know if they were mostly part of the Lufthansa heist. I think back in those days, I think they were part of that as well too. So yeah, those there was a lot of guys. I mean, it was listen, they do what they can for the money, hijacking trucks if they had to, and like I said, the drugs as well too. But most of those guys, they tried to. My cousin was actually doing a lot of real estate business with the guy Joe Bacala. They were buying buildings, renovating, flipping them. So they tried to do a lot of legitimate business as well too. But the Lucchese family, as far as being so big, they're not like the Genevese or the Gambino family as far as being as many made members. You know what I mean?
Right.
Same thing, which I'll go into the Bonanno crime family now, which they originated mostly from Brooklyn, Queens. Of course, they were in the Bronx because I was around Vinny Gorgeous. Of course, everybody knows Dominick Cicale was my captain, and he was with the Bonannos. And so, but he was kind of like based there too. But I mean, Vinny used to hang out, I guess, in Brooklyn for a long time. I guess he was around a lot of those guys back in those days, Big Trini, of course, Joe Messino and all of those guys and stuff like that. But there was Carmine Galante, that was a big drug bust there, and I'm not sure, but I think that guy Bruno, who was actually really good friends with Dominic, I think he was in on that hit too. They killed Carmine Galante back in those days. Then there was the pizza connection too. They were very well involved with. Matter of fact, I think Anthony Aiello, who I knew his name because I hung around with them more, Ace they called him, and he was very close with Dominic. I think his father was in the pizza connection too.
Explain the pizza connection for those who don't know.
That was a joint thing between Italy and of course America, and that was a heroin thing where they were shipping the heroin in and I got it right now at the time in the big sauce cans, those big cans that the sauce comes in.
The pizza sauce?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so they were shipping it around like that. So that was a big, and they called it the pizza connection because all the pizza places, that's how they did it. That's how they spread it around. That was a big thing, just like the Windows case. And I think there was a couple of guys in there, the Colombo family, maybe the Gambino family and Genevese family. I think those guys were involved in the big window case, which is they had a contract to do all the windows, replace all the windows in New York City, all the buildings and everything like that. So
wow.
You're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Probably billions. Think about how many windows are in New York City. That's a lot of money.
I mean,
just to redo your windows on your house. Just one house is like $30,000.
Especially we get the Anderson windows, right?
Yeah, depending on what kind of house you have.
Yeah, exactly. But that was a big thing too. I knew my friends. I used to know a friend of mine whose sister's husband was killed right in front of the house because he was involved in that house for whatever reason. I forget what it was. I never found out what it was, and it wasn't my place to find out. But You're talking, this is how they generate money, millions and millions of dollars, just like in the construction, you can get the concrete from these guys. They have a way they can get the concrete to you, or they give you extra jobs. So this way the concrete company will make money. So in other words, if the concrete company's making $1 million a year, well, you get hooked up with the wise guys, you might start making $3 million a year. Now, you'll see a profit, and they'll get a profit. They don't shake you down like years ago, like say, hey, you're gonna work for us, or you're gonna do this for us. It's more of a mutual thing, because listen, everybody wants to make money. Now, if you get resistance from a guy that's in a legitimate business and says, I don't want to be involved, I don't care, this and this and that, well, then you might have a problem then. And then that can stem from, you can't go to a job, the truck never makes it, you can't pour the concrete, somebody gets there before you, all different kind of little things, to stop that. But with the Bonanno family, at one time, it was pretty low on the totem pole, but they built themselves up at one time pretty quick, pretty powerful. They started becoming again, believe it or not. And they were, listen, like I said, anything that can generate money, lucrative, they're going to get involved, and we're going to do it. As a matter of fact, when I was hanging out in Brooklyn, I was on 85th and Bath Avenue. I used to hang out with at Anthony Spiro's place, which was the Big Apple car company. And I tell you the truth, I loved hanging out in Brooklyn. It was like you had a license to do anything you wanted to do. These people didn't hide nothing. And I just had the drive from where I was living in Yonkers at that time, going back and forth, fighting the traffic and everything. If it wasn't for the, my superior driving capabilities, forget about it. Yeah, I mean, I had Bobby DeFeo. He was living in Yonkers at that time. He's the one who introduced me to everybody down there. Then they chased him, but they kept me because they liked me better. And Bobby was doing a lot of coke that I didn't know about. He actually owes me still about $6,000, $6,500. I haven't never seen him in the street, but even now, even though that it's known that I'm cooperating, if I ever seen him in the street, I'm gonna let's put it this way, I'm gonna ask him for it. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, but the Bonanno family, like I said, there was some tough guys there. There was Ace, he was tough. There was Dominick, fearless, the tough. And a really
Mikey Mancuso.
Mikey Mancuso, yeah, another guy that Dominick, he didn't know. Mikey probably knows now, but he didn't know how close he was coming, because you talk about there was no love between him and Dominick, and Mike was listen, in this life, you're gonna meet some guys that are, even if you don't like them, you can have respect for them because they, you can tell the way they carry themselves and the way they conducted themselves, and even if you didn't like them. But he was just an all-around, I don't know what his crew's doing, and I don't even know why he's still running that show over there. There could be so many other guys that were to run that show. Would do 1,000 times better, but,
Would you say that the Bonannos were more involved in drugs than the other families?
It's at one time, maybe. At one time, I think maybe when Carmine was there, and of course the Pizza Connection. So yeah, at one time probably,
And were they looked down upon by the other families for that, or kind of like, let's stay away from these guys? They're kind of
they'll say we don't do that over here, like I said, but they turn a blind eye. And believe me, most people are going to be saying, "Geez, I wish we would have got involved with that," because there's a lot of wise guys out there that are broke.
The money is undeniable. I mean, it's a bad business, but.
Yep, and there's a lot of gangsters that are broke. When I was working at the Jacob Javits Center, I was around a lot of wise guys. This guy Beansy from one of them, and this guy Beansy was a great guy. Everybody loved him and respected him, but we had to earn money. At that time, it was like $25 an hour back in the 80s. We were making $47 an hour, though overtime, okay? $47, $48 overtime. So when we got a call to go in at midnight, we'd go because we were broke. We needed the money. And we'd all get together, and it'd be just like hanging out in the street some days, just putting up what we had to do. So, yeah, money is just, when it comes to certain numbers with the money, you're going to do anything, do it big. Okay, go big or go away, you know what I mean? And so these guys were willing to take a chance, and I don't blame them. Money's money. Then of course now the other family was the Colombo family, and everybody knows Carmine Persico. They called him the Snake. For a lot of people don't realize they called him the Snake. I guess they called him the Snake. One was because he was like a snake. They said, he said he was going to have a sit down with somebody. I don't know if it was Crazy Joe Gallo's brother or whatever, but then they jumped him in there. They tried to kill him and everything. I think he lived, but he had a big scar on his neck. Listen, if you're gonna try to talk somebody to work your difficulties out, you don't really do that. And if you do, that's the kind of name you get with it. I guess it has probably happened before, and nobody got a bad name, so I can't really say anything. But of course, you had some real big plays in there. You had Sonny Francis, and of course Michael Francis' son. And to be honest with you, I think Sonny, in my opinion, should have really been the boss of that family. I mean, he was the real deal. Between him and Michael, that family would have been, the gas scam that Michael came up with. They never saw more money than that. I don't care what they did in there. I mean, listen, they did garbage. They did construction as well too. They were in the unions and stuff like that. So they had their hands in a lot of good things too. But I don't think they ever saw as much money as they did when Michael was doing the gas thing. I mean, it was just all cash. He was giving, I don't know how many, couple $1 million to these guys a week or whatever he was doing. So, he could almost bought his way into being the boss. But, he was true to that life. He was, he knew his place. And, but the Colombo family was, they were a pretty good family too. I don't know if they were as strong as like I say, the Gambino or the Genevese family. And I think those are the pretty much still most powerful ones out there for anybody who wants to know anyways. You know what I mean? But just so you know, that's pretty much what they do, where they're from, their territory, their turf. But once you're a wise guy, you're above a civilian, which I'm like a civilian now too. I'm not an associate anymore or anything like that. And so when they go into a place or they walk into the place, they always walk in with their head held high, because that's what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know if you got any more questions on that or anything like that.
So you mentioned, out of the 5 families, you said that the Genevese and the Gambino were the most powerful. Were the other families kind of scared to step on their toes or move into their territories? Did they have, in other words, did they have control sort of over the other families in that way? Like they were untouchable?
Well, like I said, I mean, there is a certain part of that being untouchable. You know what I mean? You could do the wrong thing, and sometimes depending on the offense of what it is. But listen, most people, you always want to be able to go and show respect if you want to do something, or if you're at a place. Say somebody like they own a casino or an after hours place. Well, you go there and you show respect. If you're from another crew, if you're from another neighborhood and you go there, you show respect. You spend some money in there. You say hello to who you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say hello to the guy first. And I think Dominick had talked about it a long time ago. He had a card playing place, and when Dominick walked in, the guy didn't go to the door. He should have dropped everything he was doing, and he should have went and paid his respects to Dominick, because Dominick is his boss. And that's what you're supposed to do. It's not hard. It's very simple. Show the respect where you got to show the respect. That's it. And then you don't have a problem. And that's the most important thing. You can even make a mistake, but if you showed the respect and everybody goes, listen, he made a mistake, it's easy to get you a pass, or to, not get you hurt or anything like that if you did it the right way. Like, I think even Sammy the Bull even said that once there was a problem. Some guy went to the house and they were going to whack the guy, but the guy went to the guy's house and then had a problem with him right in front of his wife or something like that. And Sammy went to bat for him or something like that. Of course, Sammy can explain it better than I could, but I'm just breaking it down quickly. But you shouldn't do that. If you need to see that guy, you see him out of his home. You don't go to his home unless you're going to wipe out the whole family. And then that's a no-no too. What are you doing that for? You know what I mean? The guy's not a rat. And so, you have to just, if you got respect, you carry yourself the right way, and you do those kind of things, believe me, that goes a lot further than just being a tough guy. Because a tough guy is easy to be. it's not hard to punch somebody right in the face right away when they disrespect you. Just crack them, you know. So that's easy to do in one way, you know. But if you carry yourself the right way, like here, I'll give you like Big Ernie from the Genevese crime family, Ernie Mascarelli. He could knock you out with one punch. At least he was able to back in the days. Okay, but yet the way he carried himself and people wanted to respect him. People liked him. You know, same thing with Dominick. Dominick could go anywheres, and you either knew one or two things. He was there for a reason, and you know, if you think you're going to be the one to do something to him, you have to think about that twice, because Dominick's not going to take anything laying down, because he could do both. He gives you the respect, and he can give you a beating at the same time. It's up to you, you know, which way you want to take it. You know,
Who was regarded as the most dangerous family or ruthless?
like I said, there was different people in different. You had Greg Scarpa in the Colombo family. He was dangerous. You had a couple guys in the Lucchese family. They were dangerous. Of course, in the Bonanno family, they were dangerous.
They were all dangerous, but who would you
Yeah.
say that was the kind of had the worst rep as far as if you do something to these guys, they're gonna kill you, no questions asked?
You know, I don't know exactly offhand, because they all could do it if they had
So
to.
the answer is all of them.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's like kind of hard to kind of like just narrow it down. You know what I mean?
It was certain. It was more so. It was certain guys that you didn't
Yeah.
want across in each family.
Yeah, and you knew who to talk to, and you knew not to talk to, and you know, yeah, all of the families can get you taken out. Who was the most ruthless family? You know, that's a good question. You know, I don't even know if Dominic can answer that, but that's actually maybe even a better question for him. You know, but anyways, I hope that kind of explains a little bit. A lot of the viewers that I got out there, you know, yeah, let me just put my drink down. They they don't understand sometimes the way it's signed up, or like the hierarchies. Who's the boss? Who's the underboss? Who's the concierge? Who's the captains? So I wanted to kind of give anybody a little bit of a heads up of what they kind of do in their life, how they make money. But I also wanted to let you know, pretty much nothing is off the table. It's just got to be presented to the right people if you're going to do something, and have a plan, have a you know, a game plan how to present it. And usually they'll say, okay, this sounds good, let's try this, because you need connections. Michael Francis talks about that all the time. Dominic talks about it all the time. How you know certain people, you can get certain things done. Okay, so I want to get into this construction union. How do I do that? Well, my guys are there, my friends. I know a guy that's got a cousin in there. Whatever it takes, you get to sit down, you get to talk to the guy, and you present it to him the right way. You got to go through proper channels. But you know, this has been going on for years and years. It's still always going to be that way. You go into legitimate businesses, that's the way it goes. You have to get a sit down. You got to get a meeting with the people. You know, and you present what you can present. You know. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing good out there. I also, before I go, I wanted to, you know, I think, like I said, Dominic, he's got his book coming out, the perfect crime family with, you know, Quiet Dom and everything. I also want to talk about From Crime to Christ, the Charlie Buono story, right there, guys. Okay, good friend, very good friend of mine. And I also want to give a shout out to all my fans, Susan and Cynthia, and all those, you know, Johnny Purpleone, everybody, Payman, everybody who's watching me. I really appreciate everything. But I got a super fan who I actually called the other day from Kentucky. I spoke to a guy, Brady, and his fiance Morgan. Want to give a shout out to them too. Appreciate you guys being a super fan. With that, I'm going to sign off. You guys, hope everybody stays well. Peace and love, and we'll see you next time on the Goodfellow Podcast.